All right. So today's panel is about creating a holistic experience that all your users will return to time and time again, not because they need to, but rather because they want to. Together, we're all going to take you through our experience of communities and share practical tips on how you can create or improve the communities that you are a part of. My name is Erica Valenti, and I oversee North America's operations for Emerald. I'm pleased to be here today, pinch hitting for my colleague who couldn't helm this session as planned. With me, I have Mike Groth, Marketing Manager for North America at Emerald Publishing, where he manages all library outreach for the region via digital, social, conference, advertising, and PR channels. Mike has spent over 20 years in marketing for scholarly publishing, previously at Ingenta, the New England Journal of Medicine, and Wolters Kluwer. Next, I'd like to introduce Amy Lewontin. She is the Collection Development Librarian at Northeastern University's Snell Library here in beautiful Boston. Her responsibilities include planning and management of collection development, including collaboration and subject collection managers in all discipline-related projects. Previously, Amy was the Assistant Director of the Library at Wentworth Institute of Technology and Head of the Information Research Center at MetLife. And last but not least, we have Charlotte Majorana. She is Senior Editor at Emerald Publishing, where she manages our growing list of scholarly, business, economics, finance, and information science book programs, as well as the professional business list in North America. Prior to Emerald, Charlotte was a business trade book editor at Wiley, scholarly and professional editor at Palgrave Macmillan, and worked across business content at Springer. So for those of you who may be unfamiliar with Emerald Publishing, we were founded in 1967 with the intent to champion new ideas that would advance the research and practice of business and management. And today, as we celebrate our 50th year, we continue to nurture fresh thinking in applied fields where we feel we can really make a difference. These fields also now include health, social care, education, and engineering, among others. And Emerald manages a portfolio of nearly 300 journals, more than 2,500 books, and we publish over currently 1,500 teaching cases. At Emerald, we really believe that community is the human desire to connect with others and have a shared sense of belonging. It's pretty easy to think of the communities that form our social lives, so the gym, fellow dog walkers, circle of friends. But it's also really important to understand how your professional communities work. Some are formal communities, such as your team, and some are informal, the peers that you choose to spend time with. So we're committed to experimenting with creating formal communities which bridge the gap between the publisher and our authors. So first, let's hear from Mike, who will talk us through how our recent brand transformation was underpinned by this value we hold towards our user communities.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Erica. So, as you mentioned, I'm going to give a run-through into how Emerald sort of tapped into its community-based approach in order to relaunch our entire brand identity last year. But first, I wanted to make a couple of comments. I know it's a little bit unorthodox at an SSP session to have a panel that is comprised mainly of 3 people from the same company. So one thing that's worth noting is that I did a quick calculation, and between us, Charlotte, Erica, and I have over 60 years of scholarly publishing experience that touched over 15 different companies, as you heard from our bios, either through direct employment or third-party sales representation. So this entire combined perspective will inform the discussion today. It won't just be all about Emerald, even though we have a few examples that we want to share from more recent experience. And another observation I've made, so this is the last day of SSP, and I've been to at least 3 other user experience sessions throughout the week. And some of what I've seen will overlap a little bit with what we're talking about. Some of them went into very, very in-depth into narrow areas of creating a unified user experience, such as creating user personas, or mapping user journeys. So what we propose to talk about that will be different is giving actual examples of how we applied this process and talk about the process itself and as well as some of the actual outcomes. So it was good that what I saw somewhat validated what we're going to talk about, but didn't completely take away and steal my thunder. So with that, the logo on the left is the Emerald Group Publishing logo that had been ours for about 10 years. And the company has been around, as Erica said, for about 50 years, but we've been very active in certain parts of the world and less active or less well-known in others. And so we saw the need to refine our positioning and find a way that we could stand out better. So there was a project that was undertaken last year. It took about a year to complete. We partnered with a brand agency in the UK where the company is headquartered, and we reached out to all of our various stakeholders. And as with many of you, our stakeholders include academics, both early career and established researchers, lecturers in a campus setting, managers in corporate environments, which is important to us because we publish largely business and management research. Students, of course, librarians is a very important gatekeeper community for us in terms of our collections, and also our own staff. Emerald has 300 employees roughly in 12 different countries around the world. So this took the part of, and this, by the way, is the new identity that we arrived at based on the research. So we have a new logo, a new color scheme, and this is just a snapshot of our homepage. And I'll just share a few more outcomes on the next slide as well. So what did we do? So we worked with this agency to do an online survey, and we had stakeholders internally across the business, across the world, put forward contacts and different stakeholder community segments that we sent the survey out to. And so there were about 3,000 responses that were at least partial and 1,500 full responses to the online survey. And then we followed that up with in-depth conversations with the four most important stakeholder groups within 4 particular regions, including the US, and that included librarians, the ever-important faculty authors, our own regional managers within the company, and even some corporate customers. So this altogether, I mean, this shouldn't be rocket science, but it is community building 1.0, basically. This is how you start reaching out, and there's constant feedback loops, and it enabled us to develop a quantitative and qualitative analysis of our market position, perceptions of the company, both positive and negative, so that we could weigh the strengths and weaknesses of our brand. And my own personal involvement in this project was to be the main point of contact in North America, one of our most important markets for growth, by collating information and reaching out to my own network of contacts at SSP, fellow publishers, with prototypes, with logo concepts. Once the research was conducted and these ideas were coming down the pike, we sent them along for feedback so that we could iterate and improve upon the development of these brand deliverables in real time, as opposed to after it's too late. So I emailed these logo concepts out to our librarian contacts, whether they're customers or prospects. We have a faculty advisory board that we reconstitute every couple of years. Industry partners that I know, our own US staff, so that we don't entirely have a UK skewed view of what Emerald is, just because it is founded in another country. So that was the process, and then what actually came out of that. So in the photo on the upper photo is a word cloud. It's about 10 feet long that's now up in one of our offices that shows some of the survey feedback. I think the question was, name a word or 3 words that you think of when you think of Emerald Publishing. And not only were we so impressed with what we learned, what validated what we already thought or were aspiring to be, and what challenged us, that we slapped it up on the wall for the whole staff and company to see. And this speaks to how it is part of the entire company culture. So some of the other UX sessions I attended, it was specifically about technology or the digital interface or the website or the user journey through clicking to purchase or something like that. But this is infused throughout in all departments at Emerald and shared widely. So what did we learn from all that? So our authors don't view us necessarily as a factory where they submit a paper, it gets turned into a PDF, and that's the end. We actually help them a lot along the way, and we have a lot of author services. Charlotte is going to address those. I won't describe them in detail, but it was confirmed that one of our major stakeholder groups appreciates the way that we interact with them in a unique way. And this should go without saying, but that all of our users in any type of community setting appreciate seamless experience from Emerald across no matter what touch point we are in contact with them. And so again, that should go without saying, but it wasn't always that way in practice. And this could be whether downloading articles, looking at product info as a purchaser, engaging with us at conferences, submitting a manuscript, following us on social media. We've been able to take this data and turn it into a unified message that's more coherent. We are seen to focus in one particular niche, which is, of course, true, but this validated that we are not necessarily always known as an engineering publisher, that we have a health and sciences list. So the good news is that our strength in the fields in which we are most prominent is recognized, but we have some more work to do in some of the other areas where we branch out. Skipping ahead one of those bullets, there were also regional variations in the results. So Emerald, being a UK company, is established there. It's well known in Europe, some Commonwealth nations, Southeast Asia, where we were the first to branch out. But in North America, we're known in some circles, but not others. And I see that as an exciting and unique challenge for me in my role. And also, it is a family-owned company, and so the fact that we are independent and occupy a unique position within the market, we're not a small scholarly society, we're not a university press, but on the other hand, we're not a multinational conglomerate, but we have a global infrastructure with boots on the ground in 12 different countries. And that is a strength that we play up, and it all adds up to a positioning that we create around the notion of being a challenger brand. So this means that we'll never be we're not necessarily going to be top of mind compared to some of our larger competitors, but we can leverage our best qualities to try and punch above our weight and develop mind share as we seek to grow our market share. So this is an actual situation where we tapped on the community, our global stakeholder community, to actually deliver some results, and that ended up with an entire new landing pages for our website, our logos, our color schemes, our scope, status, ethos, and the response, the lasting impression we want to create. So that was a one-time project, but I have one more slide just to show examples of how we do this on an ongoing basis as well. It's not just a brand audit and you conduct it and then move on. We have to constantly engage with all of our communities, and that could mean inviting editors to a session where we provide enriching sessions with our partners and have a two-way dialogue with librarians that come into our office, or establishing a global library advisory board that has local chapters and regional flavor managed by the different divisions around the world. So a lot of these involve our authors and academics, and so Charlotte's going to describe that. But we also have a real-life librarian on the panel who is a valued Emerald customer, and she has some opinions on what are effective and maybe not so effective ways for publishers to engage with her very important stakeholder group. So I will turn it over to Amy.
Oh.
Don't trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks. Can you hear me? Great, yeah. I'm shorter. Okay. just wanted to put in I guess, a plug for a positive Emerald experience. Maybe when I met some of you, is I usually only attend one library conference these days. I don't know, I don't like to travel as much, and I believe I met most of you at a juried session at the Charleston conference. And I have participated in a lot of different kinds of library experiences, advisory boards, and been polled and worked with publishers through like user experience of our users, you know, and gotten some graduate students and undergrad and faculty to try out things. But I have to put in a particular plug for like a longer kind of session, the juried session, where maybe librarians and publishers and a group of librarians are there, and there's a lot of discussion. I like generally to be asked about products and how they're being developed, and then being heard back, you know, talking about the products. And I know I might have consulted with you guys about these e-cases that Emerald has done, because I saw them recently. But getting feedback back from the publisher, knowing that what you've said to them has an impact. And then I just wanted to put in also a plug for the idea of talking about academic success, I think. Because if I see that phrasing at all about, you know, user academic success for our researchers, for students, for faculty, for staff, then I know that's something I'm going to go to, and I know that's a focus of yours, but I know it's a focus of many publishers. So I just wanted to put in a particular plug for what is academic success, and as you develop your products, if that can be something that you think about. Just trying to think of what else I wanted to say. I think when publishers have these kinds of sessions, if there's, you know, like a library advisory board, and it's a very tight agenda, from the library side, it's not as powerful to us. It's much nicer to have like an open forum and to attend something that's just simply a full day where we talk with our colleagues. I know I went to a particular session, the one that Emerald had, and I was able to talk to my colleagues about the idea of what we all do about textbooks. Because I think the school I'm at, we don't buy textbooks as a rule, but I was there with other people who they had different opinions on that subject, and I learned so much that particular day in an exchange of ideas. So I wanted to just put in a plug for having a kind of open forum and less a planned thing where every second is covered by what you might need to know. But that's about it for me, and if anybody has questions later, but just wanted to say a few words in terms of that. Thanks.
Otherwise, I'll blow all your ears out. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about building some more on what Amy's talking about, building external communities. So Mike mentioned earlier a little bit about Emerald being based in the UK and in some unique challenges that we see in North America as a result of that. And so building a community here alongside running the books program is very unique setup because we're really building something from the ground up here. We didn't have a huge North American community before. We're not a mega name. As Erica went through in my bio, all the companies I worked for prior, that's not the case. If I say Wiley or Paul Grave to you or Springer, I think we all know about those companies. So this is a really different setup, and it's really important when you're getting that brand recognition in a new region that you are very engaged with your community. So that's the perspective that this is coming from. So I have up here that we're focused on engaging our authors to create a tight-knit knowledge community for all forms of research and practice. So that really means is that what we've done is try to create tools and services that help foster that community, that sense of publishing home. So across our content here. We have case studies, we have journals, we have short form books, which I'll go into in a little. We have reviews, we have handbooks, we have a professional book program. So we want authors to feel that building on that sense of community, that we're the home for their content. No matter what they're working on, they could come and work with us. And it's something to really keep in mind here is that our authors are also our users. So when we're talking about engagement and author services, these are the same people that are also using our content that Amy is purchasing for her library. So here are some hard examples of what we've done to build community that Mike touched on a little bit. So I'm going to start off here with these editor days. So like Amy mentioned on the library side, am I screaming at you?
No.
Like it's so loud. As Amy mentioned on the library side, with editors, we are also meeting with our staff and with our journal editors. So most recently, for example, we had an event where our journal editors and our staff sat down to discuss how we can basically help deliver our ever-improving journals program. So we talked through topics including, the changing journals landscape, OA, the publishing process hurdles, rankings, obviously, driving impact and all that comes with that arena now. And we're working together with that community to really transform how we're creating and sharing and how that research is getting disseminated, but we're working together on that. In addition to our editor days, we also have something called Literary Network, our Literati Network and Awards. So I was in a session the other day where we were talking about how book chapters are driving kind of discovery of book content. And one thing that struck me is in addition to us providing author services for our book authors so they understand the importance of abstracts and keywords and why that chapter level metadata is really important to them. And we also give out awards for chapter content. So we have excellence awards across our content, our journal content, our book content. And one of those awards that we're actually giving out is for best authored chapter content. In addition, for that network, we have a highly cited paper award where it's not even Emerald specific. We're giving out awards for all journal content across any publisher. It doesn't have to be an Emerald paper. So we're really trying to be engaging with that community on a bit of a deeper level with that. For our guides to getting published, so a lot of houses have author service platforms. You can go on, you're an author, you learn how to write an abstract, how you're going to be submitting your manuscript, what the publisher's looking for. What we actually do is have our journals team and our books team sit down at universities and present a guide to getting published. It's a real dedication to that community, to building networks also within universities and working with early career researchers. I'm going to skip down a little talking about that. For campus visits, as I said earlier, when we're building this program here in the States or in Canada, where we haven't had a huge presence, those campus visits are really important. So in addition to going out and meeting with authors to hear, and kind of hand curating our book projects, we are trying to continue to expand the relationships that we have with those universities as well. Because again, those authors are our users. They're working with us on their journal content, they're working with us on their book content, they want that content to be available at their university. Academic Book Week, I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a UK event that was held in 2015, and then again in January of this year. So Emerald participated in Academic Book Week, and it focuses on all different things that are affecting books in academic publishing. But our particular focus this year was on the future of the academic book. And it was a fantastic event. It was in an unconference setting. It was really engaging with authors and various stakeholders. And it went so well that we decided that we wanted to do something similar like this here in our region, which I'm going to let Mike just chat to you about briefly.
Right, so it was a difficult scenario in the UK. London is the center of everything. If we want to have an image building event or a community building event in the US, where do you have it? You have it in New York, where people have to travel. And so we isolated it to a few conference venues, and everyone here is familiar with the Charleston Conference. And we have presented at that before, and it branches out a little bit into the library facing market. So we put together a pre-conference for that, and we're able to tap our built-in communities already. to recruit speakers for that. So we'll be presenting us alongside fellow publishers, 2 librarians, some people involved in open access books. This is sort of the future of business models and delivery platforms for books. And what will the book look like in 10 years? Will it still be around? Will it still have the same importance? And so it hasn't happened yet. It'll be in November. I encourage anyone to register and come along, but it's...
I did not expect that plug.
I am in marketing. But it was something we were able to turn around quickly, just based on the infrastructure that we had set up, reaching out to all of these various stakeholders.
So I hope basically what you're getting from this is from Amy talking about how we're working with librarians, and the things I focused on here is that all of our key stakeholders are involved constantly in an open conversation and dialogue. As part of that editor day, we're putting together follow-up points that we're sending to our entire journal editor community. I mean, I've worked at a ton of houses. I haven't seen that really happening. So it's engaging with that community constantly at every point so we can have that open discussion. All right, so part of that is that we really want to be a voice in that community and not just providing content to people. So we want to be providing services that are solving problems for all of our stakeholders. So I talked a little bit before about supporting early career researchers. Later this year in August at Academy of Management, one of my journal colleagues, or 2 of my journal colleagues, myself and another books colleague from the UK, and as well as Mike, will be talking to early career researchers and answering all their questions that they ever had about publishing in a little forum on everything you want to know about publishing but you were afraid to ask. So in addition to the guides to getting published, there's bespoke events like that happening all the time where we all know that, you know, the early career researchers are really something that we need to be tapping into as publishers. One thing I wanted to talk about, since I am on the book side of things, so things are kind of skewing a little bit like that in our presentation, is something that's really unique about our cases offerings. So in our case journal, we're actually providing developmental edits for folks that are not comfortable running case studies. So when you're used to writing academic journal articles, this is a completely different environment than writing a case study, and we're helping pro bono folks write their content up the right way so it could be of the best use to our readers as well. We have an author touchpoint survey. So once a year, we're engaging the community in a little bit more of a formal setup where they can respond to us and ask questions and occasionally complain about production in those surveys. But one of the really key things that came out of that survey was that while we had really been launching our books program, we were playing around with the idea of when we were going to launch our short form books. So us having worked at a lot of other houses, we've had that experience launching those products, myself at Springer with Springer Briefs, and we were like, yeah, we want to replicate that here. But because we were just getting the program off the ground, it wasn't really our top priority. However, from the survey, we saw that our authors right away was something that they tapped into, that they wanted access to, that they had this kind of short form content, they had nowhere to send it. And since we are, we want to be their publishing home, instead of waiting until we had, 50 books across 3 different topics to launch with, we launched it immediately. We were publishing 10 of our Emerald Points this year, but with no real, we just decided yeah, this is what the community needs, so we're going to do this right away. I just want to touch a little bit on what we do for our professional authors. So again, the professional content is quite a bit different than our academic content. And some authors who are now branching into consulting, or they're working at different firms, and maybe they've written some white papers, but they don't really have that voice set yet. We're providing them with tutorials and a little training program to help them ensure that they're writing the right content for that audience before they're getting a developmental edit from us. And my last point that I wanted to touch on is we have found that in China and in the English-speaking Latin America and Caribbean, while people feel really comfortable using research and writing journal articles, their comfort level of writing in English for a book audience is not there, which is a shame because they've got fantastic content coming out. So our sales team has picked up on this, our editorial team has picked up on this, so we're actually in the process of developing a program so that when we're on campuses, on the ground, visiting different schools, we can be doing similar of these kind of guides to getting published, but being tailored for those markets who are using our content, who are these emerging markets for our scholarship, and that for more communities that we want to be engaging with. And I think that's it for me.
Oh, boy. There's a gigantic metal piece here for this. I've tripped over it 4 times. So don't be alarmed if I do it again. I appear to be fine when I do it. Okay, so thank you so much. So the question then is, how can you create and foster a community of practice in your organization? Really, how can we all take the insights, the feedback, the knowledge that we gain from these communities, harness that together with our colleagues to ensure that our products and services are delivering what our users crave? We hold the writings of Bernadette Jiwa. She's a story-driven brand strategist. Pretty close. I'm not going to read it for you. You can see it, but I think it's one of the guiding tenets for us as we continue to experiment with building these. So, as I said, we've decided to really keep experimenting with setting up a community to tap into that emotions that users feel when they find a product or a service that solves their given problem. Emerald began their first sort of formal experiment the summer of 2016. We knew that it wouldn't work using an already established team that we had in place in one of our global divisions, that we needed different skills from across the organization. And we decided, too, that creating this shared community meant that we would all be accountable in ensuring that the user was at the very heart of all of the decisions that we made. So to guide our efforts, we have an innovation team, and they married the principles of a shared community that we've already talked about with a sort of rapid prototyping approach, employing Jake Knapp's design sprint process to create Spark Labs. I can talk a little bit more about that, or we can. And the intent was in 5 days, these cross-functional teams come together and solve a user problem. And these are the fairly simple and probably intuitive and steps that we took to make improvements to our product and make our users happier. So the first step, obviously listening, observing your users to figure out their needs, wants, and motivations. You need to, as some of the speakers have touched on, it needs to be fully immersive. You need to dive into this community, and it's something experiential to find out how people feel about pain points. Next, look for those frustrations they experience with a product or a service. And a critical step is 3, which is to find out if this frustration is impacting the experience for other users, and that's where having a wide community is really important. You do need to make this journey trackable with analytics as well. So it's fast, but there is, of course, data and analysis that needs to be a part of this. And then 4, you design better experience through rapid prototyping to remove the friction, keep refining to get to the outcome that you want. And then finally, you test it. So through user testing, comparative analytics that I already mentioned, connect back with your users. I hate jargony terms, close the loop. See if those changes have actually worked. So for Emerald's first experiment, we brought global business representatives together to hear about the pain point that faculty face when conducting their research. These business partners prioritized the problems, so they got a lot, and then they winnowed it down to identify the best opportunity for Emerald to come up with solutions and test them. This multidisciplinary team then took that problem, and in just 5 days, we created a prototype and tested it with researchers to see whether it would solve the original problem. So here's the problem or the hypothesis that the team worked on. Can Emerald facilitate communities to help researchers bridge the gap between published research and the impact that it's having in practice? You're hearing this nonstop from us. Again, it's something, bringing that research to life and having practical applications is one of the driving goals for the entire company, I would say. And here is the prototype solution. So kind of mainframes with old-timey paper and Post-its. Here's what they came up with. It's called Ask an Academic. This is an online space that connects Emerald's authors with the real problems faced by business communities. And the benefits of this solution are that researchers really have the opportunity to connect with both industry and also with other like-minded academics. This space also facilitates a forum for applying research right then and there to solve business problems. So our colleagues from product, marketing, design, research, innovation team, they took this problem, they identified it first, came up with a solution with little time, no money, other than resources of people being in these sort of very incubated environments where they dedicated themselves to this over 5 days. They had regular catch-ups with the user to ensure that the ideas as they went along and the solutions that were coming forth would help give users that positive and practical emotional connection that we were looking for. These are 2 books that I think I referenced during this, and they're both good reading if this is something that you're going to entertain. And so to recap, user experience goes beyond interacting with computer applications. You need to meet all the aspects of your users to deliver something and consider something that's really impactful. Connected, informed, engaged communities are really catalysts for positive change. Once you've identified a user need or frustration, and to minimize the risk and to fail faster, succeed sooner, you need to use progressive iterations to develop solutions that transform the value for your users. And then you celebrate on day 5. So just to conclude, at Emerald, we really do follow these principles of a community of practice, and we use innovative approaches to develop our products and services. We work closely with our users and colleagues to make sure the developments we make really help increase that feeling of a collective community and happiness, honestly, with the experience. So that is it from us. Does anybody have any questions? I have some at the ready then, which is smart. So I guess I want to start with you, Amy. I'm interested, are there any publisher engagement tactics that you find counterproductive that you're very quickly willing to say, this is not a good use of my time, I don't want to engage with this? Sorry.
Well, that's a good question.
Cool, good.
Thanks, Mike. I think that's a good question, but I actually thought about that, because you had said, well, I might ask you that, and I can't.
It's supposed to be spontaneous.
Yes, it is.
Well, I'm so glad you asked.
But to be honest, I can't honestly think of one. It
Okay.
might just be that there might something, as I was saying when I was standing up, if something's too tightly controlled, then it's not a good use of time, perhaps. But I can't think of a particular kind of forum or event or something that I wouldn't think would be helpful. It's if there's no time for like an open discussion of ideas, of exchange of ideas. That to me is probably the most important. As long as there's enough time built in, and it's not only, if we're talking about publishers to libraries, if there's no time on the library side to get out as you're talking about, your frustrations.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily frustrations, they're more like ideas. As long as it's an open forum, I think it can be any kind of thing that can be fruitful. So that's about as honest an opinion I can give you there.
Okay. Hi. Will you speak up or come to the microphone? I've been ordered to ask people that.
I can shout, is that okay?
What?
Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, when you have your interactive sessions with your users, do you involve them in the design sprint kind of part you described? So your 5-day hothouse, or does that tend to be your internal team responding to the stuff they picked up at other sessions?
You're grabbing the mic?
Yes, I can address that. So the answer is both. So I participated in one of our internal Spark labs. I don't think Emerald invented the term, but this is the first place I've worked that through that drives everything that we do through all departments. So the way it worked, so just the example you described, what we did is there was a management workshop last summer in the headquarters office, and we had a researcher come in and present all of her hopes and aspirations and frustrations and how she does her research, her job, and what's standing in the way. And we came together in a workshop to sort of narrow down her problem and what we could do that was within our means to help her as a key constituent. She was a doctoral researcher from Loughborough University in the UK. So it boiled down to her issue was pretty much information overload, preventing her from actually feeling like she's making a difference in the world. So she's just completely attending to keeping up with the literature and filtering what's important and what's not, and never really connecting her theory and her baby, in effect, to the practical application out in the real world. So the way the lab worked is once she presented that, everybody breaks up into groups, and we create. You saw the photo of the whiteboard with the Post-its and the wireframes, and I think I saw a very similar photo in another presentation earlier this week. But it's called an empathy map. So you're taking down, brainstorming every possible idea that you could think of that would be part of her problem, part of her solution. You group them. It gives sort of a snapshot of her situation, and then so for the sprints within the actual workshop itself, there's a defined team within the company and our innovation group, and it's multidisciplinary across functions. They do isolate themselves. We call it the incubation period, which means no attending to business as usual. Focus and dedicate strictly to this problem. You define the problem, come up with a problem statement that starts with how might we? Like, how might we facilitate a community to help Susie Muchmore of Loughborough University bridge the gap between research and impact? And through this brainstorming and storyboarding, journey mapping, you develop these paper prototypes that you can sort of make out on that screen. So they're wireframes of an actual interface for this Ask an Academic platform that we were discussing. And there's a usability testing component to that. So the team actually created an animation using the paper and presented it back to the management team. But there were steps along the way where Susie, the researcher, was asked for feedback, and there were other volunteers that were sent this information and at the ready to provide their feedback. So it's developed through iterations, through these various sprints, and it ended up being, so Emerald is working on a corporate learning product that is to be rolled out through one of our subsidiary companies, and this actual functionality will ultimately be worked into this as yet to be launched initiative that maybe at this time next year we could tell you more about. So that was a really long answer to your short question.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody else? No pressure. Okay. We have about 2 minutes. And we can stop here, but if you have any questions, feel free to see us. Oh, go ahead, please.
Just one more question. Do you have, does anyone challenge this model as being very resource intensive, constant, ongoing interaction with your customers and stakeholders? Is it something that you can make an easy business case for, or is it the way you rolled it out, the specific way you rolled it out?
I think the structure that we sort of employed from different writers in this field, 5 days, little resources, is a safe way to experiment in terms of costs. I do think, though, there's almost a sense of ethos at play here for Emerald in terms of ongoing commitment, collaboration. We're all in this world, and producing scholarship is weighty in terms of, what it does for future generations, how it drives policy. It's a real sort of commitment that we've taken on, and I don't think that it's needed a business case per se. And I do understand the times when you do need to do that. This has just been it's a mindset, I think, that's just become embedded. And it's a very experimental place. I've been with Emerald for 9 months, and it is far and away, well, I shouldn't say that. Do I have former colleagues here? Hi. It is, there's something very genuinely exciting happening. And you can see the actions that are being taken, and the outcomes are measurable. It's incredibly rewarding. That's the only thing I can say.
Can I add?
You
Sorry,
may.
I need to dominate.
Drive
but,
us over to
I think it does take a bit of a critical mass within the company to do all the things that we do. So I was speaking to a platform provider here earlier this week and asking, does any of the other publishers do what we just talked about that Emerald does, or do they rely on the platform to do that? And the answer was largely the platform, and the development partner is expected to do a lot of this for a lot of the, and that of course is their strength as well. So you may need to come up with a business case to accomplish a lot.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming. I hope you have a good afternoon. Bye.